Welcome everyone who is attending tonight, and to those of you who are listening on community television and over the airwaves. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and listening to what I have to say about our city. This event marks the resumption of an idea former Council President Mark Lewis had during his term in the mid-1990s, which is to deliver a January annual address to the city from the City Council President in a public venue where everyone is invited to come and listen. The primary purpose of my message is to reassure citizens that Eau Claire is a city that works. Over the next few minutes, I will talk to you about how public leaders in Eau Claire manage a stable, responsive, and responsible local government with the goal of ensuring the well-being of all of us. But before I delve into the specifics, please abide a brief reflection on government in general and its purpose. For thousands of years, nearly as long as human society itself, people have built governments. Scholars date the first recorded code of laws to ancient Babylon, almost 4,000 years ago, whose purpose thus written was, quote, to regulate in clear and definite strokes the organization of society. This ancient insight describes the purpose of government still today, or put another way, to build a fair system that holds people together in a place full of different ideas and desires. Or, as Parker Palmer writes in his book, Healing the Heart of Democracy, government's primary role is to hold the tensions of the people long enough for them to figure things out. People want different things. Good government recognizes that and accommodates those differences. It is a beautiful way to describe the purpose of government, and a purpose the City Council works to fulfill. For the next few minutes, I'll talk to you about how we do that. First, let's talk about the city's physical infrastructure. You know, the stuff that we use and see every day, and some stuff we use and don't see. In short, the city's physical infrastructure is in very good shape. Our roadways and major arterials, like the new Business 53, now completes a practical and elegant transportation system. Bike trails and pedestrian walkways crisscross the city, giving travelers a choice for getting around without getting in their car. Water quality in Half Moon Lake is tremendously improved because we got rid of some very nasty weeds. Eau Claire is far ahead of other communities in the development of our stormwater runoff system, thus improving the water quality of our lakes and our streams for our citizens and for everyone living downstream from us. Also, we negotiated a one-of-a-kind land use agreement with our neighboring townships that will manage land far into the future. And we secured a grant to upgrade our information architecture backbone, with the benefits accruing to many, many public entities and private nonprofits. And lastly, as we speak, the city is completing its most recent round of energy efficiency projects right at City Hall, a dear old building that is replacing inefficient lighting and upgrading the HVAC system, saving considerable energy costs. But tending to the city's physical infrastructure is just one of the things that we do well in Eau Claire. Let's look at how city leaders are now managing our financial infrastructure, a worrisome and serious topic. But in Eau Claire, public leaders have been paying attention to the city's fiscal health for decades. So our fiscal health is good. Debt limit is well within statutory limits. The reserve fund is adequate, even though we dipped into it a little bit more this year. And capital stock assets are well maintained, as I have just discussed. But challenges exist. As with many other cities, shrinking state revenue and increasing expenditures are the major threats to maintaining physical health. The thing that drives expenditures in local government is the same in Eau Claire as it is in every municipality in the country, and that is a growing and changing population. If there weren't any people here, we wouldn't need a local government. We wouldn't need services. But there are people who live here, and people who need, as I said, a chance to live together. Historically, Eau Claire's population growth has been pretty stable, about 1% a year for the last 2 decades. That probably is not going to change. The city's population also never has gone down. That's not going to change either. That means a constant and growing demand for services, and that means growing expenditures. Public leaders in Eau Claire meet this constant demand in many responsible ways. But one very effective effort that we are trying to perfect this year is sharing services with other jurisdictions. A habit Eau Claire actually has practiced for a long time. After all, the shared city-county health department is 40 years old. It's a landmark shared institution in our state. This habit, though, will be strengthened in 2012 through the leadership of the Joint Shared Service Commission, which has identified specific projects that will bring more effective government and services to all of us. Another effort has been our work to manage the costs of the city's workforce, our single largest expenditure. We have done so by working together to bring citizens the best value we can for their tax dollar. By squeezing every ounce of productivity we can out of our workforce through wellness initiatives that keep our workers healthy, continual improvements to internal processes that reveal better ways of doing things, by striving to meet performance objectives in every department, and by creating a culture of cooperation among the city's almost 500 employees. A smaller workforce than in 1980, by the way. The quality of city services is as high as it can be under a modest tax rate, about $8 on the thousand. But expenditures are only half the city's financial infrastructure. Leaders also have to deal with changes in revenue. The income basket is changing for local governments in Wisconsin, particularly as shared revenue from the state decreases. It looks like this scenario is not going to change, which means that Eau Claire has to generate more of its revenue at the local level. Over half the city's revenue is generated by property taxes, especially residential property taxes, since many exemptions apply to commercial and manufacturing properties. It is therefore the revenue that is most impacted by decreased sharing from the state. This council, though, has worked to soften that impact of more reliance on property taxes by increasing the size of the whole property tax pie. A larger pie means that each person's slice is smaller. Well, smaller pie pieces are not a good thing at the Thanksgiving table, but they are a good thing if the pie is a tax. We have accomplished this by creating a facade loan program, incentivizing infill development, disposing of excess city property, investing in redevelopment, and bolstering our economic development fund. Also, Council does not take lightly the value of attracting outside dollars as a source of revenue. Things like maintaining our parks and hosting sporting events, completing bike trails, appointing a poet laureate, naming ourselves the Cube capital of the world, all generate income for merchants and make Eau Claire a fun and a place to live and to visit, and increase the quality of life here. So far then, you have learned that our physical and financial systems are working well. I want to end by talking just a bit about the city's human infrastructure. By that I mean the system of people who work with and in government to address the needs of everyone around us. City government works closely with many agencies to provide support for people who have fallen on hard times or run into a bit of trouble with the law, perhaps, or have a new idea. Here, we have done many things right. For example, having recognized the need for a low-barrier homeless shelter, a new shelter was created. Having recognized the need for stronger drug enforcement, a regional task force position was funded. Having recognized the need for a common place to grow local food, a community garden was planted. Having recognized the ongoing need to bridge the Hmong and Anglo cultures, a new Hmong liaison officer replaced a respected and retired one. Having recognized the energy and youth of a growing Hispanic culture, a new festival was proclaimed. And having recognized the need to support innovative business ideas, an innovation fund was supported. And having recognized the need to match workers' skills with the jobs in demand, a committee seat was filled to study the very issue. And lastly, having recognized long ago the need to engage citizens, a grassroots, clear vision effort was created, and an online forum, e-democracy, was begun. As you now see, without a doubt, Eau Claire is a city that works. But we have challenges too. Most involve actually trying to look into the future. In his book, Planning for the Future, John Luthi says that governments must spend more time planning for the possible and the probable future. That is, we must ask ourselves, what circumstances are possible given a set of knowns? And what of those, out of those possibilities are probable? This is no small task, of course, but then none of us up here signed up for small work. Given my reflections on Eau Claire's possible then and probable future, I envision the following challenges over the next few years. First, our median wage lags behind the state and the nation in Eau Claire. We must capitalize on our cluster strengths in healthcare, education, retail, and information technology to attract higher paying jobs and lift all boats. Our transit system does not adequately meet the demand of the next million riders. It must become more convenient. We live next door to an economic powerhouse to our west, the Twin Cities. We must do a better job of attracting their attention. Also, the world's environment is changing. Population growth and technology are increasing the demand and the costs of energy. We must therefore be more responsible for our impact on the environment and decrease growing energy costs. The full impact of the state's changes to the public workforce are yet to be seen. But this much we know. We know that managing a workforce that is split in half, one half under full union contracts and half that isn't, will be a challenge to maintaining the cooperative organization we have worked so hard to build. We also know that the high number of retirements have already caused a churning in the city's organization, at times bringing new ideas to the workforce, to be sure, and to be celebrated, but causing an unsettled atmosphere, as change always does. We will have to muster all of our leadership skills to manage these changes. And lastly, small entrepreneurs are the heartbeat of innovation and are perfectly suited to a city our size. We must find more support for them. Now, Eau Claire's leaders are prepared to meet these challenges. We are experienced, we are engaged, and we are looking to the future. And we have already built a model of good governing with clear and definite strokes on which we can rely. For example, we fight hard over issues, as anyone knows who's watched council proceedings, but we never fight with each other. We practice being civil, and it takes practice. We work in the open, right in front of all of you. You see all that we do, and you hear all that we do. And we bring dignity to this office. I began this message with an ancient reminder about the purpose of government, that being to figure out a way to live together. Almost 250 years ago, our country's founders perfected such a system of governing in a democratic republic, arguably the best form of self-governing in the world. Here we are today, still tending that system. A decent government is a precious thing, worth dying for, as our country's history would prove and the Arab Spring would affirm. So, rather than constantly beating it up with words and fists, we must instead use our speech and our hands to support this precious thing, to push for changes, to correct things for sure, but also to root for her. It is a big job. And yes, we in local government are so small, but not inconsequential. We have an important job, though we are very small. Think of it this way. Local governments are like a flotilla of tiny tugboats tethered to the gigantic ship of state that is our democracy. We float down here close to the people. In fact, we can see them right over our bow. And seeing them, we join together with other local governments bobbing in the water to tug the enormous ship of state safely to shore, where the people say she needs to go. She needs us to know where to go and could not dock without us. Our job then, out here in the water, in the tugboat of democracy, is absolutely essential. And we do it well in Eau Claire. We are a city that works. Thank you all very much.